All right. As you all know, every single week I highlight the stories of those who have been wrongfully convicted. I'm looking forward to our next guest. She has not been exonerated as of yet. Her case is on the governor's desk, but I am looking forward to talking with her. She spent 26 years behind bars for a crime she did not commit. Let's bring her on. Faye Jacobs. Faye, how are you?
Finding you. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Thank you so much for being here. You were arrested in 1992 and you were released July of 2018. It's a really incredible, emotional story. But you were arrested when you were 16 years old. So I normally start here. Tell me the young man or young woman that you were before this happened to you, but you were a child. So tell me the child that you were at 16 years old before all this happened to you.
Yes. I was. I come from a large family of six siblings, six brothers and six sisters. I'm the baby. Um, my foundation was in the church. My dad had us all involved in church. I was in the 10th grade. In school and working part time as well. A typical teenager in school, doing well. Had a lot of friends. Was involved in different things within the church and inside the community with my father. And so I come from a good family. But back in 1992, in the late 80s, early 90s, my hometown, Little Rock, Arkansas, was on the rise of gang violence. And during this time, law enforcement was forced to do something about the many crimes that had been occurring. And these crimes that had been occurring had been happening by juvenile delinquents. And so back in 1992, when a young man who at the time he was my friend, Kevin. I was accused of killing him. Uh, they had was forced to do something about the crimes that were occurring, and so when that had happened, my name somehow I don't know was put out there, and I was questioned and later arrested.
And
Basically,
and Miss Jacobs, do I have this right? The shooting happens right in your neighborhood,
yeah,
and you and your mom go outside to see what's going on. You just want to see what's happening. Someone has been shot. This happens in Arkansas,
mhm,
and a police officer asks you a question. Says, do you know the victim? And you're like, yeah, that's my friend. And because of that, that's essentially the reason why they look at you as a suspect. And then if I have this right, they take you into custody and you're okay talking to the police, you're obeying the police. They do a test on you and you have no gun residue on you. You were it came back negative. There's no gun residue whatsoever. You're released, then they come back for you.
mhm.
So how in the world did they why did they come back for you? I mean, as I was reading the story, I was obviously it's illogical, but why in the world did they come back for you when you they're negative for the gun residue test?
Exactly. And not only that, they had gave a description of the person who actually committed this crime. They said it was a person in their late 30s with scars under their eyes. You could tell they had been stabbed, perhaps in their face. Uh, the description they gave did not fit me. That day I had attended church. I had still had on my church clothes all that day. And just to bag it up, me and my mom didn't come outside. We had pulled up in a car and there
Oh,
was
got you.
going on, and we got out the car to see what was going on, and that's when they questioned me about Kevin. I was like, that's my friend, what are you talking about? And they threw me on the car and cuffed me and took me down to the police station. And it was during
Wow.
that time they asked could they do a gun residue on me, and of course I know I hadn't shot a gun, so I hadn't did anything wrong, so I had no problem with that. And so I gave them a gun residue, and they asked me what did I do that day? And I told him from the beginning to the end, attending church, hanging out with friends, back with my mother, on our way to go to church again. And then this incident of them arresting me prevented us from going to the church services that we were on our way to. And so I gave them that, and I was released. But a couple of days later, a detective did come to my house and asked me had I heard anything, and I told I hadn't heard anything. Basically who had did this, and I hadn't heard anything, and so that was it. But then 9 days later, my mom called me and told me that the police had this particular day. I didn't go to school. I just so happened didn't go to school because I wasn't feeling well, and I was at my sister house. Since I didn't go to school, I couldn't be at home by myself. I went to my sister house, and so my mom called there, and she said the cops had come to her job looking for me, and I said, "Looking for me for what?" Had no understanding, and at that time, I called my dad and I told my dad what my mom had told me. And so he said, "I'm coming to you." And I said, "Let's go to the police station so we can clear my name because I haven't did anything wrong." So it was at that time my mom, my dad, my pastor, and me, my went to the Little Rock Police Department to clear my name. But when I got there, I was arrested and charged with capital felony murder and set
I,
a $1 million bond.
and I'm, but what did they arrest you on? What was their bizarre way that they somehow had evidence?
Well, like I told you, Little Rock was on the rise of gang violence, and they had a later on had a big write up. They were using me as an example to other young gang members. Yet I wasn't a
Wow.
gang member, but I was a young 16-year-old, and so they wanted to send out a message. And not only did they want to send out a message, during that time it was the election year, and Bill Clinton had been elected the governor of Arkansas. And so, with all they had the banging going on in Little Rock, Arkansas, where they end up making a documentary of it. And so much was going on. So they were just forced. And I was basically railroaded into the system because myself nor my parents knew anything about the justice system. I had never been in trouble. My other siblings had never been in trouble. So we didn't know anything about the justice system. We were just a poor Black family just trying to live and survive. And because they wanted to do something about the crimes, they railroaded me. And so it was a young man that was with Kevin Gotti, the young man that is deceased. And when it happened, they had showed my picture, and he was like, "No, that's not her." But later on, he came to identify me and say, "Yes, that's her." And
Wow.
he was really hesitant. And then later on, a guy that was in jail um, said that he saw me. I was the one. And at the time, he was facing a murder charge. And he
Exactly.
came forth and said, "I seen her." And so they gave him a deal. And he is the one that testified against me, which he has since then recanted and said, "Yeah, I lied on her. I said it because I was in jail and I didn't want to go to prison, and they helped me out. So I just told them that,
Mm.
but I'd never seen her
So
a day in my life." And this is what he has recanted since. But
let
yeah.
me ask you, the detectives, the police officers who are questioning you and coming back to to get you, even though you've tested negative for this gun residue test. I just think it's important to have some context here. Were these predominantly white police officers in
Yes,
this black
all
neighborhood? All
all
white.
white. Yes, like my juror was all white.
Your
11 of
jury
them.
was 11 jurors were all white.
Yeah.
So tell me about this trial. What are you and your mother and father going through as you're in this trial?
So during this whole process, I sat in jail a whole year waiting on trial, over a year. And during this time, my father was out in the neighborhood, trying to find out who committed this crime, and just trying to help the detectives, but the detective said, we got who we want and that's it, and he's like, my daughter's innocent, and I'm steady saying I'm innocent. And I was they had me in the city jail, and because I was a juvenile, I was by myself. I was in this tiny cell. The lights never went out. They kept the lights on me at all times. I never had any privacy. Um,
Wow. That's
and
torture. That's torture to
oh,
always have the lights on.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, the things that did, it's just horrible. But my dad, and he was doing this, and so they had appointed me in a counsel, a well-known, prominent lawyer in from Little Rock, Arkansas, because my family didn't have the money to pay for an attorney. And the attorney they appointed me was a well-known attorney, uh, but he had, during this time when he took on my case, he was shunned in the system because uh, his wife had been killed by his lover, and it was a big thing, and they was trying to charge him. He became an alcoholic, and during this time I stayed in jail. I never seen him but the day of trial. I stayed there over a year, and I never saw my attorney
Wow.
until the day of
The day
trial.
of trial.
And when I seen
Wow.
him, my trial started off with 12 jurors, all white jurors. But one of the jurors got sick during the process, and they released her. And so they deliberated, and the next day um, they came back with a guilty verdict, which was totally mind blowing. I didn't understand, I didn't comprehend.
You were charged with capital murder and your original sentence was life without parole. So you're 16 years old. You already spent a year behind bars waiting for trial, which to me is insane. And you're charged, you're sentenced to life without parole. How are you surviving being behind bars? Just you have no exposure to this. You're a child. How are you surviving with whether it's the inmates or the guards? How are you surviving having your freedom taken away from you?
Well, like I said, I was in a one-man cell all alone with lights on constantly on me. My parents were allowed to see me every day, to come up there. So that's what kept me. And I was allowed to make phone calls, but I didn't have any contact what with other inmates because I was a juvenile and they were all adults. The only contact I would have if I was at the door to make a phone call, I would be mocked. That's that little juvenile killer. They would say ugly things and, things like that. But other than that,
The guards would do this, or the
no,
inmates.
the inmates
Ah,
say things like this. Yeah. So
and
my
so
was just basically having contact on the phone with my family and just having the visitations. But other than that, none whatsoever. I didn't have anything else.
so when you're no longer a juvenile, do they transfer you to a prison where you are with other people? And so how are you just surviving the time getting by with that?
I was eventually moved to an adult once they decided to charge me as an adult. I was moved with the adults, and I was moved to the county because at this time, the time I was in jail, it was a city jail. But once the judge said we're going to charge her as an adult, I was immediately transported to the county where I was with other adults. And I got in, I had fights there because I had to defend myself, and so I stayed locked down a lot while in the jail, you know. As a protection as well, but just not want to be involved. I'm still in shock. I'm just a kid, not understanding why I'm there. I hadn't committed a crime, and yet you have me here accused of killing my own friend, and the real perpetrator is still out there on the road, out there on the street, and you have me in here. So it's just not really comprehending to me, things is just like, this is not right. I'm not going to get out of here. Me asking my dad, are you going to give me a lawyer? Are you going to get someone? I need help, things like
How
that.
did the victim was, you say Kevin Gotti, is that correct?
Correct.
May he rest in peace. What a horrible situation for him to. a friend of yours to lose their life, and I can only imagine the trauma that you went through losing a friend to violence. But how was his family? How was the victim's family reacting to this? Did they believe you were guilty? Did they believe what the prosecutors were saying? How was his family reacting to this being pinned on you?
I honestly had no contact with the family. I don't know. Um, Even being out, during trial, they were there, but they never said anything against me. I remember my attorneys asking, but they didn't have anything good or bad to say. They just wanted justice for their son, but it was nothing to my knowledge.
Wow. So 26 years behind bars, 26 years. What did you lose the most when you think of those 26 years?
Mm. When I think of those years, I think about I lost a lot. I lost my womanhood. To go there so young, and to come out and to be put back out in society and not be able to produce because you were away so long and you lost everything. And so that's one of the big issues. And then to come out and still have this conviction weighing over my head, following me everywhere I go, hindering me from opportunities, being out, and with them taking my womanhood from me. My great desire is to adopt, but I can't adopt a child because of this conviction that still weighs on me. So that's one of the big things. When women go to prison, we're emotional creatures anyway by nature, and dealing with men's. Having to give you your sanitary napkins, watching you while you shower, and you have no say so in it, just being totally humiliated and stripped of all your dignity while in prison. Women's In a women's facility, it's a lot of we do a lot of writing versus men. They do a lot. They are more physical, fighting when things come about, and we write. Judges and department DOJs, with different things that goes on within the prison, and not having anything done. And so that's one of the big things, just having my womanhood taken away, and then to be put out here and to continue to for them to have their foot on my back, not allowed to do certain things, not to have promotions on jobs. I'm just totally limited to what I can do because of this conviction.
And you were released July 17th, 2018. How were you released? How did it happen? I know you did some amazing work with the Innocence Project.
Yeah, so the Midwest Innocent Project had taken on my case. Let me rewind a little bit. While incarcerated, I had written numerous of innocent organizations asking them to represent me because I was innocent, and they would always tell me I was on the waiting list. And so it wasn't until 2014 that the Midwest Innocent Project had accepted my application, because I had sent them an application. They had this very lengthy application that I had to fill out. And I think it's something to discourage people from not, doing it. You have to, and they tell you on the application, if you were there, you knew anything about it, you played a part. Don't waste our time, and we're not going to waste yours. And I didn't fit that bill, so I filled out this long, lengthy application, and they had taken on my case. And in the midst of them taking on my case, they had Miller versus Alabama, a law that came down from the United Supreme Court stating that it was unconstitutional to sentence juveniles to life without parole. And so basically, they were saying, you shouldn't sentence a juvenile to die in prison. They should have an opportunity to get out. So while the Innocent Projects had my case, this was going on as well. And while that was going on, Numerous attorneys had been sending me letters, excuse me, stating that I was the only female in the state of Arkansas that had been sentenced to life without parole, uh, and that I had qualified for resentencing. That I want them to represent me, and I was like, no, I have the Midwest Innocent Projects on my case. I'm not concerned about a resentencing. I want to be exonerated. I want the truth to come out. I am innocent of this crime, so being resentenced is just not a thing for me. My focus is the innocent projects, and so I had shared with them what was going on, and they were aware of it. And so, but they had contacted the lawyers and told them there's no need to. She don't need you. We got her. Basically. Uh, and so, in 2017, the Midwest Innocent Projects filed a habeas, and at that time my sentence was vacated. And then at that time when it was vacated, the Miller versus Alabama had filed a petition for me to have a resentencing hearing. So at that time, Midwest Innocent Project said we'll represent her because we're doing her other case as well. And so in this Miller, Alabama case, in the process of being resentenced, you have to take acknowledgement of the crime that you committed this crime and what you've done and all this. And so it was a conflict of interest because the Innocent Projects was conveyed to the prosecutor. She can't confess to something she didn't do. And so how are you going to do this? And so they were trying to figure out how they were going to do this, and they had let them know that they had filed my habeas in court for my actual innocence, that I was innocent of this crime, and they had all the evidence to prove it, as well as the gentleman coming forth recanting, saying yes, I lied on her, and with all the other physical evidence that they had to prove my innocence. And so the prosecutor come up with a bright idea. Well, we just want to release her. We're not going to even worry about it. We're just going to release her with time served, which it became a conflict with the other gentlemen's other juveniles that were male juveniles that was in the state of Arkansas, because they had passed down that we're going to resentence the people in Arkansas, but they must serve 30 years before they can be resentenced. I had only been in prison 26 years, 7 months, and 2 days. And so when the prosecutor contacted my attorney and said, no, we want to release her with time served, um, it upset not just me, but other juveniles, because they was like, well, how is she able to just, but what it was that they had seen my petition of my actual innocence. And how the law works is once a petition is filed, a habeas is filed in court for your actual innocence, you have to be incarcerated. But once they released me, it became moot. It was gone. And so what only thing I could do and my attorneys could do was appeal to the governor of Arkansas, which we have done, and waiting on him to acknowledge my innocence and to pardon me. And so that's where we're at today. So that's what we have done, but he have yet to make a decision yet.
Governor Asa Hutchinson.
Correct.
Hopefully he does. Who has been horrific when it comes to COVID, but that's another story.
Yes.
How's this been? So he needs to. It would be great if he would have a
Yes.
little bit of soul and compassion and do the right thing for you. Miss Jacobs, do you have a Cash App in case people are listening and they want to donate or help you?
Yeah, I do. So it's dollar sign, a capital L, and then the name Faye, Faye, 7580.
Dollar sign L, capital L, Faye 7580.
And
Cash
the
App,
F,
correct?
capital 2.
So capital dollar sign, capital L, capital F, AYE 7580. That is your Cash App. Well, if
Yes.
people, I know it's rough times, if folks can help out or support, I think, yeah, it would be a great thing. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and telling your story. These stories are so important. Once
Right.
again, Faye Jacobs, she spent 26 years behind bars for a crime she did not commit. She was released July 17th, 2018, and she is waiting for the governor of Arkansas, Asa Hutchinson, to do the right thing and officially exonerate her so she can move on with her life and not have this conviction hovering over her. It's one thing to have your sentence vacated, but to be exonerated is a whole new thing. So hopefully maybe the people of Arkansas, if they're hearing this, can send some love your way to make sure that happens.